This is Northern Michigan Connections, a service of McDonald Garber Broadcasting. Our goal is to connect you with organizations who are providing unique services to the residents of Northern Michigan. I'm Tim Nixon. Northern Michigan Connection is back. Mel's pushing the buttons. I'm Tim Nixon. And we have Pat. We have Larry, sometimes Leaping Larry. I just made that up, but well, I think he's fun. So, and then Catherine's here too from Harbor Hall. And Harbor Hall is your port in the storm. That is the logo that we use when we talk about you and you sponsor the news in the morning. Your port in the storm. It seems like there's a lot of reasons that people might need a port in the storm because lives have been messed up with addictions and relationships and things that are just all connected somehow. So, without going too far into it, I want Larry. You're the board president, and you've come on after an extensive life of interacting with people on various levels in entertainment and restaurant business, bar business, things like that. So you've had a chance to see people at their best and their worst.
I have, and I've been on the board of Harbor Hall for about 28 years now. I got into recovery myself about 33 years ago, and after an extended time in the entertainment business, and followed through with some really substantial growth at Harbor Hall over the past 28 years. Harbor Hall's been there since 1974, so 44 years ago. It opened up as a house on the corner to help some indigent men that needed some serious help with their alcoholism and drug addiction.
We're talking to Larry Rochon. And Larry, when you first went to Harbor Hall, it was that small. It was a house by the side of the road, as Ernie used to say.
Yeah.
And you were able to come there. Did you realize you needed help, or did other people tell you needed help?
I never went to Harbor Hall for treatment. I got involved in Harbor Hall after I was in recovery for 5 or 6 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was obvious that Larry needed help at one point in his life, and sought that recovery.
Does it frustrate you when you see people who should seek recovery because they definitely need it, but they don't realize it, or they just don't want to admit it, and you almost have to coerce them to at least try?
Frustrated? No. Sympathetic? Yes. It's a powerful disease. That still has a very, very strong stigma about it in our communities. It's a disease, and people fail to realize that. It's not a moral character issue. There's a serious disease problem, mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Pat McGinn is here. He's CEO of Harbor Hall, and Pat had a background with the military, with the Navy, and things like that. And did you personally ever seek help as a recovery?
Yes, I did. I'm long-term recovery, 32 years for me, and I went through a treatment center while in the military, and that's a really interesting proposition, doing treatment in a military setting. However, I got into counseling in the military and did that for 10 years while still there, and then when I retired, I came right to Harbor Hall. Didn't even skip a beat. Was hired as a clinical supervisor and been there now for 19 years at Harbor Hall, and watched a lot of growth and changes. And something I wanted to kind of mention that you mentioned to Larry about the folks that come to Harbor Hall and about coercion, and sometimes that's what people need, is a little wake-up call to figure out that something's going on with them. And not many people that I'm aware of decide to go to treatment because everything's fine and dandy. Something happens, and a lot of times there is law enforcement involved in that, or something that kind of push people towards our doors.
Some kind of crisis.
Some kind of crisis happens, whether it's with a family or a DUI or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of situations, but most of the people that get into recovery, now this is anecdotally speaking, but most of them have some kind of a background with the law. and that's the courts and probation officers. They see the value in sending people to treatment, so they push them in our direction because they know what happens there. So,
Do you feel like they are more open? And this is for either one of you or both of you. They're more open to you because you've had a background, because you understand from the street level what it's like to be in their shoes.
well, yeah, but I don't know. I would think from my perspective, yeah, I would say so. But, not all of our counselors and therapists are in recovery. I think that those that are in recovery, they bring a unique perspective to the table. But because somebody is not in recovery does not mean that they can't help people recover from addiction problems. And most of my counselors are not in a recovery program.
Mm-hmm. So, Larry Rochon, as board president, what is your role that you do on a regular basis for Harbor Hall?
Just keeping an eye on Pat.
That's right.
No.
I need to be watched.
Well, financial, personnel, expansion.
So the operating, the business
Yeah.
side of things.
There's two boards. There's a Harbor Hall Inc. and there's a Harbor Hall Foundation. The foundation is the arm of Harbor Hall that's a fundraiser mechanism. It has its own board of directors that helps us keep the doors open in lean times. They're also responsible for a lot of capital improvements, expansion of buildings, and so on. So I'm the president of the Harbor Hall Inc. board. There's a fellow by the name of Tim Kepford who's the president of the Harbor Hall Foundation board, and we work side by side. They've been an extremely great help to us in the past and in the future.
When you started with a singular building in the 70s, and now what do you have?
We have one whole half a block, one side of the street from corner to corner, and it transitions from the old house, which is still there. And in the back of the old house is a dormitory that houses 38 men. And then kitchen area, dining room area, administrative staff, and counselors' offices. And then two freestanding houses at the end of the block that are transition houses, call them tea houses. So when you're out of treatment, you can go to the tea house and get yourself a job and become acclimated into the community again.
Right. But you're not jumping out totally. You still got connections, and I would assume some kind of somebody that you're answering to still at that point.
Yes, to live in the tea house, you have. Pat could address
very
that.
high structure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of accountability. We also have our outpatient programs. We have an outpatient program here in Petoskey that has a couple of different levels of care in it, and we also have a women's facility, women's and families center that's also here in Petoskey. And
For outpatient.
those are outpatient offices. And we have our outpatient office in Sheboygan that's been going on since 2003. And we most recently started an operation in Charlevoix, and that is call it domiciliary intensive outpatient, but basically it's a program that's run by the Charlevoix County Probate Court, and we do their treatment services for adolescents. And that's called the SHARP program, Safe Harbor Adolescent Recovery Program. And we've been doing that since 2015.
Safe Harbor?
Safe Harbor
Adolescent
Recovery Program.
Okay.
SHARP.
And who would that's cool. Who would qualify for that? How would they qualify to be involved there?
At the SHARP program?
Yeah.
Well, those kids are all referred to through the court system. And
so they're kids that are addicted.
These are kids that are addicted.
They're not just in families of
right.
of
And these kids are
parents,
taken. They come from all over the state. They're taken out of their homes. They're put into foster care homes in Charlevoix County. They have, I think, 4 licensed foster care homes specifically designed for this purpose, and they're referred to the program through a court mechanism, basically. So a kid gets in trouble, let's say in Kent County. Kent County calls up John McLean, who is the director of SHARP, and then they have an application process and a screening process, and and all the kids are screened, and those that are eligible are brought in. So they're taken out of their homes and put into foster care while they're here.
How many employees must you have for all of these different outreach programs?
Right now, we are at 41 employees, and we have a psychologist that we contract with, and we have a medical director that also works with us.
And a marketing director.
And a marketing director, yes.
That'd be Catherine.
That's
right?
Catherine.
That'd be Catherine.
So, on the kids, what's the youngest kid that has ever come through the program?
Over the years, I'm gonna maybe 12.
And addicted to what?
The main things that we're seeing kids addicted to right now is marijuana and alcohol. But then, you get occasional kid that does a little bit of everything. Mostly it's marijuana and alcohol.
At 12.
At 12, yeah. Well, even at 13, 14, 15. I mean, it's alarming that we got kids using at that young age. But yeah, it's not as uncommon as we would think. We got adolescent program here in Petoskey and one in Sheboygan too, and we're dealing with the same things in a community-based setting. So those kids they're still in the community and they're doing recovery services that are all directed by the courts, but just the same kind of deal though, as far as the drugs that they're using. And
You just scared the daylights out of me. I have a 10-year-old.
yeah, yeah.
And you see all of a sudden there's the involvement with the other kids at school and stuff like that, and they want independence and they want to go over there with them, and it's like you're thinking, okay, I want to know who these people. I want to know who their parents are. I want to know whole bunches about them just because of things. But I didn't really realize that at 12 you've got addicts that have already been introduced to not just alcohol, getting in their dad's closet, but marijuana or other pills or whatever. And the fact they would even know or desire that stuff at 12 is a little frightening for parents, I think.
Yeah,
It's one of the fallacies, Mel, that we live in this beautiful area, Petoskey, Harbor Springs, Charlevoix, and these addiction problems really don't exist here, but they're alive and well in our communities. High schools have their problems. They deal with addiction, kids in addiction. So we're very, very honored to have the services available to them, because if you get them early, you might be able to save them from a lot of headache.
Sure. Patrick McGinn, Larry Rochon are here from Harbor Hall, and they're letting Catherine come along for the ride. We might put her on a mic in the second half, but we're going to take a break now. Northern Michigan Connections. You're listening to Northern Michigan Connections, a service of McDonald-Garber Broadcasting. We are back, Northern Michigan Connections, and we get to visit with Harbor Hall, your port in the storm again. And with us, Patrick McGinn is the CEO, and Larry Rochon is the board president. And there's so many things going on right now as far as expansion and desire to grow the programs larger. And you actually have officially gone on record as there's a building you're interested in, and you need funds, and you're going to the seeing if they can restructure like where people are as far as zoning and stuff like that. So tell us about that.
Yeah, Tim, it's always been a vision of Harbor Hall Board, both boards, the foundation and the Inc. board, to have a women's facility in the area. There are no women's facilities for residential treatment for alcohol and drug addiction in northern Michigan. I think Traverse City has one unit that's kind of small, but nothing over in this area. So the foundation acquired the building adjacent to Harbor Hall. It was an old beer distributor warehouse, and they purchased the property about 3 years ago with the intention of expanding, and we kind of run into a buzzsaw with the city about zoning and so on, because we purchased the building knowing it was zoned correctly, but then they had an ordinance change, and they were changing the ordinance. So we've been waiting a year to get in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is on July 10th, Tuesday night at City Hall, to get our okay to build this facility.
So you already own the property and the building.
We own the property, we own the building. We're just waiting for the approvals from the city. And it's a perfect transitional zoning in the neighborhood. It is in the neighborhood residential section of the city, but it transitions into commercial and industrial pretty quick. So you go from housing, residential housing, to Harbor Hall facility and into commercial and industrial. So it's a good transitional zoning. The neighborhood setting is required for a treatment setting because you're able to indoctrinate the clients into the neighborhoods and into the community. Harbor Hall, Pat, you might want to talk about Harbor Hall's involvement in the community, which what the residents do there now. But as far as the zoning goes, we're hoping to get the green light next Tuesday to move forward with this. It's 35 beds, women's facility, very, very nicely done. It'd be the jewel of the neighborhood. Very nicely done. Kind of looks similar to the old house, the old Victorian house on the corner. We're kind of keeping that theme, making it look like a neighborhood setting.
Nice. And 35 beds.
35 beds for women, and we get calls every day. Pat can attest from women looking for treatment, and there isn't any available for them. So we're hoping to pull this off. The foundation has been diligently fundraising for this. We got a good startup campaign going, and we're ready to go.
So we'll know Tuesday.
We'll know Tuesday.
Yep.
About the zoning. And does there look like any obstacles?
There are some resistance to it in the neighborhood, and I understand that, But Harbor Hall's been there for 43 years, owning that whole half a block right across the street. Our neighbors, we've had no incidences or very, very minor ones over 43 years, and we fit into the neighborhood well. It's something that Petoskey should be proud of, to have a treatment facility of this caliber. We're now affiliated with Betty Ford Hazelton. Mm-hmm. And that's a big feather in our hat to be recognized by the mothership of all treatment centers. But the misconception about people in recovery or people with these problems, addiction and alcoholism and drug addiction, is that they're bad people trying to get good. They're not. They're sick people trying to get better, and that's the hard thing to get across to the general public.
So need to change the emphasis on perception.
On perception.
Yeah, perception is always an issue. The stigma of addiction is alive and it's strong, and anywhere you go, you're going to get a variety of opinions about this particular segment of our population. But going back to the Women's Center, we've been talking about it for years. I've been with Harbor Hall, like I said, for 19 years, and it was always a conversation. We do men's residential, we do it very well. We need a women's center, and I'm gonna say roughly 18 months ago, when I became CEO, Larry and Tim and myself, we all took a trip out to Minnesota to visit Hazelton so that we could learn from them. We wanted to make sure that we were at a crucial point in moving forward with some plans, and so we took a trip out to Minnesota and toured all their facilities there, and we learned from them how to design a facility that's going to meet the needs of this population that is really underserved. Like Larry said, there is no women's treatment facility in northern Michigan other than Addiction Treatment Services in Traverse City. And there's nothing here in this local area. We do literally get calls every day for beds. So I have no doubt in my mind that that we are going to meet a need that is really needed. In the state of Michigan, For every 10 residential beds there are for men, there's 1 for a woman. And so that, and the numbers within the state, even in our region, shows that the addicted population is roughly 60% men and 40% women. And it varies, a percentage point here or there, but that's a pretty solid number that we see across the state. And we're looking at maybe a 10% availability for women to access the same type of services.
How would a facility have to differ for women versus for men? It's almost, in my head, just my imagination without knowing, I would think it's a simpler situation for men than for women, because you've got just more complexities as far as kids and relationships and just even your personal stuff,
No, absolutely. Men are actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
With women, it's a much different treatment perspective. We have to. That's the reason we went out to Hazleton, Betty Ford, was to learn from them. And we left there. It goes, "Geez, Pete, is this something we really want to do?" But it's mission driven. I mean, we are definitely about the mission, and this has nothing to do with finances or anything other than we want to provide a service to women to address a need that is huge. And then you bring in the opioid crisis that's going along with that, and we are, trying to meet all these needs. And we ran out of space at our current facility. We are literally putting people in closets to work. Actually, our doctor's office is an expanded closet. I mean, we have no space to move outward as we try to meet needs. We need a new building. We need new facilities. We want to be state of the art. The state of the art, the technology these days with addiction treatment is phenomenal. Our affiliation with Hazleton Betty Ford has literally put us on the leading edge of the treatment technologies and the treatment services that we can provide. We've got on-demand things that we can use clinically. We are involved with medicated assisted therapies. Our physician is taking care of clients' physical needs all the time, and we know that the physical needs for women is going to be another thing that we're going to have to address. Now, the one thing that where we bring women into this is the families and kids, and that's going to be we have a lot to learn as far as how we're going to develop and because we know that family, that women's and children and keeping them together is going to be real important. How we're going to do that in this particular setting is left to be discovered, but we're excited about discovering it.
So Tuesday, we just need the zoning board to say yes, and how soon or how quickly could you be on it?
Well, the demolition of the existing warehouse building would take place probably this early fall, and then the proceeding on to the building of the facility probably in the spring.
So you're starting from scratch then with the building?
Yeah, well, the building has to be removed. That's there.
Okay.
And it's quite an eyesore now. The roof's caving in, et cetera. But what we have going in its place is a real jewel, a real pretty facility. We're hoping to, like I said before, Tim, to make it fit in the neighborhood, make it look like the neighborhood. The fellows that go there now, the residents there, they become part of the community. They ring the bell at Salvation Army. They do all the Christmas decorations and Halloween decorations downtown, all volunteer. Harbor Hall is a nonprofit. It's the difference between some other treatment centers in the area. We're nonprofit, so the focus is totally on recovery.
And we want our residents to give back to the community.
So they work, like I think, for the Women's Resource Center.
Yes.
Yep.
Stuff like that, and Salvation Army.
Salvation Army, the Mana Project.
The Mana Food Project, too.
Mm-hmm.
So they're busy. They have things to do. It's not just sitting around mending.
Right. There's a lot of therapy that goes on there, but it's the community involvement as well. We do a car wash.
And they do a heck of a car wash.
Well, thank you.
And
They do a nice job.
I came back and I said it on the air that it was every Saturday, 1 to 4.
Yeah.
And the very first week that I said it, somebody moved it to every other week or something, and got to figure that out. So, but they're involved, and I guess that was the key. I've never seen so many people out there at a car wash and just moving cars through and doing a great job. And I thought, okay, do you guys personally get anything out of this? You just put money in, it goes into the program. So, but they do a good job.
Well, the money does not come to Harbor Hall. This goes specifically to the clients and their recreation funds, and helps us to get transportation for them to do a wide variety of things. Like we got a canoe trip coming up, and so that's all paid for by the car wash.
Nice.
So that we get no financial anything from the car wash.
Right, but personally, they don't get like anything. It
No,
goes into their
it goes
fund,
into
so
the
they
client fund.
can do
Yes.
stuff. How long would somebody be there normally, as far as a patient?
30 to 90 days, and then we can add on up to 6 months at our sober living facility. So we can get them there to 9 months to a year, and really it's about buying time. The more time we put between that last use, the better chances that somebody has in being successful in recovery.
Do they have any time that they can go home during that time? See family and stuff like that?
Well, no. We have visitation every Sunday, and folks can put in passes, but we keep a pretty tight rein on the folks the time that they're there, and they have to stay with it. When they do have they can get a 12-hour pass or an 8-hour pass, but they have to remain within 50 miles of the area.
Okay.
So they can't wander too far away.
I see a lot of guys walking in the evening in groups, and they all look like they're about the same age group. Are there any elderly? These guys that I see are like younger guys, and the car wash guys were younger guys. I would think Manna and the people that do all that. Are there any elderly people that are also coming through the program?
Yes, I think our oldest one that we've had there was 76, and that was just a couple months ago. He was a funny guy. Said that he came to treatment because he wanted to get away from his wife for a month. but he was great having him there.
Yeah.
It was, but yeah, I mean they're 18 to and older. If they're able to navigate the program, and we can take them there, and they meet our criteria.
Okay.
The majority of these clients, Tim, come from northern Michigan. I think it's like 62% come from northern Michigan, and almost the rest of them come from mid-state Michigan. They come into the community, they get recovery, sometimes go to the tea house. I don't know the percentage of one that stay in the community. It's not very large, though.
No, it's not very large.
But the ones that do stay in the community become part of the workforce, which is desperately needed. They got recovery, they're sober, they want to work, so they become cooks and waiters and landscapers and painters, and a good addition to our workforce.
A new lease on life.
And a new lease on life, yeah, exactly.
Harbor Hall, your port in the storm, whatever that storm is. How do we get a hold of you?
HarborHall.com.
That's pretty easy.
And our phone number is 888-880-5511. And but yeah, HarborHall.com. All the information is there on the webpage, phone numbers, people to contact, and the process of getting in.
Pat McGinn, Larry Rochon, thank you so much for stopping by, and thanks you for riding herd on them, Catherine. For Northern Michigan Connections, we'll see you next time. You've been listening to Northern Michigan Connections, a service of McDonald-Garber Broadcasting, connecting you with organizations who are providing unique services to the residents of Northern Michigan. If you have questions or comments about today's show, contact Carrie.Davis at 106khq.com.